Flight 2937, the last radio call, location Überlingen, Germany. Date, July 1st, 2002. Time, 23:35:32 local time. The night sky over Lake Constance was crystal clear that summer evening. Stars pierced through the darkness like diamonds scattered across black velvet. It was the kind of night when pilots love to fly. Perfect visibility, calm winds, and the world below glowing with tiny lights that stretched to the horizon. But this perfect night would become a nightmare that would haunt the aviation world forever. The crew. Captain Peter Nielsen wasn't supposed to be working that night. The 36-year-old air traffic controller from Denmark had already put in a long shift at the Skyguide Control Center in Zurich, Switzerland. With over 11 years of experience and more than 10,000 hours controlling aircraft through some of Europe's busiest airspace, Peter was known as one of the most reliable controllers in the system. His colleagues called him the Rock because nothing seemed to rattle him. Tonight, he was covering for a sick colleague. His wife had called earlier, reminding him to pick up milk on the way home. Their daughter had a school project due tomorrow. Normal life, normal concerns. He had no idea that in less than 2 hours, his decisions would be scrutinized by investigators from a dozen countries. Bashkirian Airlines Flight 2937 was carrying 69 souls that night. At the controls sat Captain Alexander Gross, 52 years old, a veteran pilot with 12,000 flight hours etched into his logbook like battle scars. Alexander had flown everything from old Soviet Antonovs to modern Tupolevs. He'd survived engine failures, bird strikes, and brutal Siberian storms. His hands were steady, his mind sharp, his experience unquestionable. First Officer Murat Avsharov, just 36, sat beside him. Murat was the new generation, trained on simulators, comfortable with glass cockpits and digital systems. He had 5,800 hours of flight time, and tonight, he was the pilot flying. His young son had drawn him a picture before he left, a stick-figure daddy flying a plane through clouds. That picture was folded in his uniform pocket. Behind them, 45 Russian schoolchildren were chattering excitedly. They were heading to Spain for a UNESCO-sponsored student exchange program. Can you imagine? Teenagers dreaming of Barcelona beaches, of practicing their Spanish, of adventure. Their teachers and chaperones tried to keep them calm, but the energy was infectious. Some were taking their first international flight. DHL Flight 611 was a cargo aircraft climbing through the same airspace. Captain Paul Phillips, 47, an experienced American pilot with the calm confidence that comes from 10,000 hours in the cockpit, was at the controls. His co-pilot, Brant Campione, 36, was a former military pilot. Precise, disciplined, trained to follow procedures without question. They were carrying urgent freight. Nothing glamorous, just commercial cargo that needed to be in Brussels by morning. Two men doing their job, unaware that fate had marked them for a collision course. The chronology of chaos. Everything was routine. Flight 2937 was cruising at 36,000 feet, heading west toward Spain. DHL 611 was climbing through 35,000 feet, heading north toward Brussels. Their flight paths would intersect near Überlingen, but that's what air traffic control was for. Systems were designed to prevent exactly this scenario. Peter Nielsen's nightmare began. He was alone in the control room, completely alone. His colleague, who was supposed to be monitoring the adjacent sector, had stepped away. The phone system had just gone down for maintenance. And now, on his radar screen, two blips were converging. His heart rate jumped. He could see it. Flight 2937 and DHL 611 were on a collision course. Nielsen's voice crackled through Captain Gross's headset. Bashkirian 2937, descend flight level 350. Expedite. I have crossing traffic. Captain Gross's eyes widened. Descend? Now? His TCAS, Traffic Collision Avoidance System, hadn't issued an alert yet. But the controller said descend. Descending to flight level 350, Gross acknowledged, his voice steady despite the adrenaline suddenly flooding his system. His hand pushed the control column forward. Then it happened. The TCAS alarm screamed to life in both cockpits. Traffic! Traffic! The automated voice shouted in Flight 2937's cockpit. Climb! Climb! The TCAS ordered. But wait, Nielsen had just told them to descend. What should they do? Follow the human controller or the machine? In the DHL cockpit, their TCAS had a different instruction. Descend! Descend! Captain Phillips immediately pushed forward on the controls. Military-trained Campioni verified the descent rate. They were following the TCAS exactly as procedure dictated. Back on Flight 2937, chaos erupted in the cockpit. He says descend, but TCAS says climb. First Officer Avsharov shouted, his voice tight with confusion. "What do we do?" someone asked. Captain Gross, with decades of experience telling him to trust air traffic control, made his decision. "We follow the controller. Continue descent." This was the moment, the single decision that would seal everyone's fate. Nielsen tried calling DHL 6111. DHL 6111. Climb! Climb immediately! But there was silence. The phone system was down, his backup was gone, and he was watching helplessly as the two radar blips merged closer. 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 Why weren't they responding? Had they heard him? Nielsen's hands were shaking now. He tried again. DHL 611. Do you read? Climb now. In the DHL cockpit, they never heard Nielsen's desperate calls. They were on a different frequency, following their TCAS religiously, descending exactly as commanded. Both crews saw each other at the last second. Captain Gross looked up through his windscreen and saw lights, impossibly close, impossibly bright. His mind couldn't process what his eyes were seeing. "Pull up," someone screamed. He yanked back on the controls with everything he had. Captain Phillips saw the Tupolev materialize out of the darkness like a ghost. "Oh God," he had time to shout. The children in the back of Flight 2937 didn't even have time to scream. At 23:35:32, at 34,890 feet above the peaceful German countryside, the vertical stabilizer of DHL Flight 6111 sliced through the fuselage of Bashkirian Airlines Flight 2937 like a guillotine blade. The technical horror. The physics of the collision were brutally simple and horrifically violent. The DHL Boeing 757's tail struck Flight 2937's Tupolev Tu-154 at a combined closing speed of over 700 miles per hour. The impact generated forces that no aircraft structure could withstand. The Tupolev's fuselage ripped open. The decompression was instantaneous and catastrophic. Air exploded outward at supersonic speed. Anyone not strapped in was torn from their seats and sucked into the freezing night. Those 45 schoolchildren, many unbuckled and moving around the cabin in excitement, never had a chance. Their young bodies were flung through the void, tumbling through 35,000 feet of darkness. The Tupolev, mortally wounded, began spinning. The flight controls were useless, hydraulics severed, control surfaces destroyed. Captain Gross pulled and pushed, but the aircraft wouldn't respond. It was like trying to steer a car with no steering wheel. First Officer Avsharov was still alive, still conscious, still trying everything he could think of. But there was nothing they could do. The aircraft fell from the sky in pieces, breaking apart as it tumbled, scattering wreckage across miles of German farmland. The DHL Boeing lost its entire vertical stabilizer. Without it, the aircraft was aerodynamically unstable. Captain Phillips fought the controls, trying impossible corrections, but the physics were against him. The Boeing entered a flat spin, corkscrewing toward Earth. Both aircraft hit the ground within minutes of each other. 71 people died instantly. The aftermath. Peter Nielsen sat at his console, staring at the radar screen where the two blips had merged and then vanished. His hands were still trembling. His mind couldn't accept what had just happened. He had just witnessed 71 people die, and he had been the last voice they heard. The investigation would later reveal the perfect storm of failures. The phone system down, the colleague absent, the maintenance timing, the TCAS confusion, the decision to follow ATC instead of the automated system. But none of that brought back those 45 Russian children. None of it consoled the parents who had sent their babies off on an adventure and would never see them again. 2 years later, Vitaly Kaloyev, an architect whose wife and two children died on Flight 2937, would track down Peter Nielsen at his home. In a moment of grief-fueled rage, Kaloyev would stab Nielsen to death. Even revenge couldn't heal that wound. The night of July 1st, 2002, taught aviation a terrible lesson written in blood. When TCAS says climb or descend, you always follow it. Controllers are human and can be wrong. The machine, in that critical moment, knows better. But that lesson came too late for 71 souls who fell from the perfect summer sky over Überlingen. Your voice matters. What do you think? Should pilots always follow TCAS? No exceptions? Or are there situations where human judgment must override the machine? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between following orders and trusting your instincts? Share your story. We want to hear from you. Smash that like button if this story moved you. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our deep dive investigations into aviation history's most crucial moments. Share this video with anyone interested in aviation, safety, or the incredible stories of ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances. Question for you. If you were Captain Gross hearing conflicting instructions with seconds to decide, what would you have done? Controller or TCAS? Human or machine? There's no easy answer, is there? Let's honor these 71 souls by remembering their story and ensuring their tragedy led to changes that save lives today. Every aviation safety rule is written in someone's blood. Let's make sure it wasn't in vain. Drop A in the comments for all the pilots, controllers, and aviation professionals who carry the weight of these decisions every single day. Thank you for watching, for caring, for remembering. See you in the next video, where we'll explore another untold story from aviation history.